Organizers of the just concluded End Bad Governance protest held in Nigeria from August 1st to 10th, 2024 are planning to stage another protest in October. The director of mobilization of the Take It Back movement, Damilare Adenola, confirmed the planned protest in a media interview recently. Adenola said the protesters' demands would remain the same unless there were other issues requiring them to add more. Well, joining me on the program tonight is Juwon. Sanyaolu is the national coordinator of the Take It Back movement. Also joining me on the program is Declan. Ihekaire is the national coordinator for Activists for Good Governance. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me. I understand that right now we just have Juwon. Juwon, thank you for joining me on the program.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, let me start off with a very blunt question up front. Why another protest?
Yeah, I think it's quite obvious. The president's last media broadcast failed to address a single demand of protest. And you can tell by the mass discontent that created this media chat on social media, as well as the fact that people on the following day, August 5th, came out in protest across different part of the country from north to south. So obviously, people are dissatisfied, and we are asking for more, and insisting that the president must accede to the demands of protest. There are 15 points demand, which included the demand for a living wage, immediate restatement of subsidies so that price of oil can at least fall back to what it was pre-May 2023 when the president was sworn in, and amongst several other demands, as we have widely publicized in the course of the protest, the president addressed nothing.
Let's also talk about the fact that the president, you made reference to his address to the nation during the protest, and one thing he said in that particular address is that on this matter is open to dialogue. Are you exploring that option too?
How can the president say it's open to dialogue when he continues to violently clamp down on peaceful protesters? As we speak today, over 1,000 protesters have been clamped in different protests across the country. The National Security Advisor, who is directly answerable to the president, is currently holding scores of other protesters. And they were supposed to be arraigned today, but the arraignment was postponed to tomorrow. And the Federal High Court premises had been placed on military siege as though we were coming to fight a war. So a president claiming to want to dialogue cannot continue to repress people who are asking for good governance, who have decided to be patriotic. As it stands now, those police officers that killed protesters across different parts of the country, none of them have been held accountable. If the president is not being hypocritical with regards to his statement about dialogue, someone should have lost their job, and one of them is Inspector General of Police, who should have been held accountable for the extrajudicial murder of various protesters from across the country. But rather, the president sees nothing wrong with some of this. So the president cannot say in good faith that he's interested in dialogue whilst they're hounding and hunting after peaceful protesters. Sorry.
Talking about part of individuals that were held by security agencies is Michael Lenin. We actually did have him at some point on this show. I'm not sure. Do you have any update as regards his state at the moment?
Yeah, to be clear, the Michael Lenin and host of other protesters have been detained unlawfully. As a matter of fact, Michael Lenin had been held there unlawfully for over 2 weeks, denied access to family and friends, and on many occasions denied access to lawyers. This is totally unlawful and unacceptable in what is supposed to be a democratic society. So what we are saying is that is to insist that the president is making it making Nigerian people justified over and over again for resolving to return to the streets, because he has not abandoned his ways of impunity. As a matter of fact, everything President Tinubu had done over in the last 1 year, he had practically outdone former President Buhari. He has outdone him in the areas of repression of human rights. He has outdone him has outdone President Buhari in the areas of repression of press freedom. Several journalists have been clamped in prison. As a matter of fact, in the last protest, journalists were addressing on bulletproofs, as if they were going to cover a war, Russian-Ukraine war. It's a terrible eyesore, and it shows clearly that we are not in any way dealing with so-called Democrats. We are dealing with a dictator, and the faster we recognize this, the better. And the only way to confront a dictator is not to cower before him, but to boldly look into his or her eyes as citizens of this country. And that's exactly what we've been doing since August, even far back as June. And we'll continue to do it until the Nigerian government respects our rights as citizens, respect the fact that the office of the citizens remain the highest office in the land. And as I used to say, the president and every other members of the house, I do not refer them as our leaders. I refer them as servants who are elected to serve the people. And unfortunately, they've not been doing a good job at that. And it's the reason those of us who employ them will continue to remind them of the reason they are employed in the first instance.
All right, let me leave you for a moment, Juwon. Let me bring in Declan Ihekaire. He is the National Coordinator, Activist for Good Governance. Declan, thank you for joining the conversation this evening. Now, my question, just like I asked Juwon, why another protest in October?
Thank you. Protest in a democratic setting is unending. It's a continuous thing in any democratic setting. Even in military regime, protest is a way of expressing your disagreement with certain policies of the government. So it's not something that is new or should be new to anybody, most especially in our democratic setting. Moreover, Mr. President has always been one of the major protesters in this country. And so it shouldn't be a new thing to anyone. Even the government admitted the fact that, Nigerians are suffering, that there's hunger in the land. And we don't need to be quiet. We need to insist on things to be done rightly. You are telling Nigerian citizens to be quiet, that they should be patient. Why you in governance have not been patient? And it's quite unfortunate that we're getting wrong at this point in time. Like Juwon rightly said, human rights abuses have been enormous under this administration. This is the first time in the history of my life as an activist that I will see a government paying certain citizens to protest against other citizens, not ordinary protest, to go on a situation where they hunt down genuine protesters. And we noticed this during the last protest that we had between August 1st and August 10th, where certain individuals were actually armed, financially armed, otherwise armed, to disrupt the peaceful protest that we're holding. It's quite unfortunate. We can't continue this way. And so I wonder those advising Mr. President to hunt down on the protesters. It is always the government and the government agency that causes violence when it comes to protest. No protester goes to protest ground with a razor blade. No genuine protester goes to protest with even a cane or belt. Rather, what you see is that you see state-sponsored protesters coming to hijack a situation. Sometimes they use the police against the interest of the genuine protesters. And so we're saying this is not fair. This is not. It's highly undemocratic. And Mr. President should not allow himself to be misled or be deceived by those that are supposed to be his servants. As a matter of fact, The last time we had our protest between August 1st and August 10th, Mr. President never addressed any of our demands. He never addressed any of our demands. And we're saying those demands are very, very vital. They are very, very important. And he must listen to us. For instance, we're saying cut down on cost of governance. Few days ago, our presidential aircraft were founded somewhere outside the country. Yesterday, we had a news that a new aircraft has been bought by the same government. We are also aware that of recent, there are pictorials showing us another vehicle, very, very expensive vehicle that Mr. President has purchased for himself, for his use. And we're saying we should cut down, we should keep on dying while people who are governing us, who are supposed to be our servants, are enjoying the word that belongs to all of us. We're saying no. We're saying no. Thank you.
All right, Declan, I'll still stay with you. Looking at what transpired, in the last protest, is it all right to say that anything was truly achieved after the protest?
Yeah, a lot was achieved. For the first time in the history of this country, you find the government in power, running from pillar to post, meeting people, meeting the different stakeholders. While they are meeting different stakeholders, they have not met those who were the forerunners of the protest between August 1st and August 10th. They have not deemed it right. They said we were faceless, we made our faces known, yet they refused to extend an invite to us for us to actually tell them Nigerians feel the pains. They shouldn't be misled by those who don't feel what ordinary Nigerians
I'm sorry, Declan. You said they never extended an invite to some of you.
Of course. Mr. President said he's ready for dialogue.
Yes, because I was going to that.
How do you dialogue? You said we are faceless. Fine, but we made our faces known. Even in Lagos here, we're known. The police authority knows us. And so it's just a matter for you to extend the invite to us, then we'll sit down, then we'll discuss it in the open.
So you are saying that, for instance, yourself, you are open to dialogue.
We are open to dialogue, but dialogue must center on our demand. He must listen to us. We're not foolish. We love this country more than some of the people who are clapping for him. We love this country. We have paid our price. We were among those who chased away the military. The democracy we are enjoying today, most of us sacrificed a lot to make sure that where we are today. And let me remind Mr. President, I remember when MK Abiola came back from the exile, and we went to the airport to welcome him. I was very small then. I remember I was sat by side with what we call Mr. President now, where he was hanging in the jeep that was conveying MK Abiola to his house in Okwabi Asi. And so he has always been a protester. And so what we're saying is this: the government must listen to us. It's not enough to say you want to dialogue, and you don't know the people who organize the protest. But here we are. Please, Mr. President, do the needful. Our demands are very simple. Don't let anybody deceive you. You can't be. You see, it's a government that everybody is clapping for, and nobody is telling you what is right. That government is gradually going down. And so, Mr. President has admitted the fact that what we are saying is true and is factual. But he should honor those things that we're saying. We love this country, I repeat. Juwon love this country. I, Declan, Ihekaire love this country. Soweto love this country. Every protester love this country.
All right, Declan, let me leave you for a moment. Let me go back to Juwon. Juwon, I'll ask you the same question. Okay. Declan, can you hear me? Okay, I think we have a bit of, okay, we have you back. Declan, let me leave you for a moment. Let me go to Juwon. Juwon, I'm still going to ask the same question. The last End Bad Governance protest, would you say it achieved some feats? And also, I remember very well, vividly, that the government kept saying the organizers of the last protest are largely faceless. Now, for this October protest, which you're calling for, are you faceless? I'm sorry, Joe. Okay. Please
obviously, the Nigerian government knows that the people at the forefront of our protest are not faceless. Nigerian people are not unknown as soldiers. in the words of Fela. And it's actually very unfortunate for the president to describe his citizens, those who he is supposed to be serving, as faceless. But let us even assume, without conceding, that we are indeed faceless. Who are the faceless people? Is it faceless people that the federal government or the government, various state governments went to go get injunction against? The Minister of Education was running from pillar to post to obtain court injunction against persons in Abuja. Court injunctions were obtained against our director of mobilization, our convener, from protesting certain places in Abuja. Myself, there were court injunctions against me, against Soweto and a few other persons, preventing us from protesting, and even getting ridiculous injunction against the Nigerian people. I wonder how such I wonder how anybody or any so-called leader in his right mind will go get an injunction against the Nigerian people. It's rather unfortunate. So to be clear, the Nigerian government at all levels will be hypocritical if they do say that they don't know Nigerians who are at the forefront of protest. And even if, again, I say without considering, if you think that Nigerians at the forefront of protest are faceless, are the demands also faceless, I think the president needs to concern himself less about knowing faces behind protests, but more about the demands of the Nigerian people. And what are these demands? There are 15 points demands. I think for me these are sufficient enough to engage. And the president did not need to dialogue with anybody before he unilaterally announced the removal of fuel subsidy in May 2023. He did not need to dialogue with anybody before they arbitrarily increased their fees across our campuses and continue to ask students to be debtors. The president did not dialogue with anybody before spending taxpayers' money to buy private jets for himself, while Nigerians continue to sleep hungry. The president did not dialogue with anybody before increasing electricity tariff. And
all right, Juwon.
If people and saying that whether we think that the protest works or not, if there is anything, I think the Nigerian people, especially young people, should beyond reasonable doubt that they are powerful enough to hold leaders accountable.
Juwon, I understand. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I understand that we need to go on a commercial break. When we return, of course, we'll pick up. Please stay with me. If you're just joining us, this, of course, is Politics HQ on News Central Television, and I still have my guest with me. I have Declan. Ihekaire is the National Coordinator, Activist for Good Governance. I also have Juwon Sanyaolu, is the National Coordinator of the Take It Back movement. And, of course, they are discussing the fallout of the last protest in bad governance and the forthcoming October protest, which they have tagged fearless. All right, gentlemen, thank you for staying with me. Before we went on that break, Juwon, you were trying to, of course, establish a point. But this October protest, it's branded fearless. Why that name?
Oh, yeah, I think the October protest is practically a continuation of the End Bad Governance in Nigeria protest, which kickstarted in August. And for those who have been quite observant, you would also know that this protest, End Bad Governance in Nigeria protest, is actually a continuation of where we left off in NSAS in 2020. As someone who was very involved in the NSAS, I remember on the period 15th of October 2020, the demands have quite advanced from just NSAS to netizens and protesters on the ground demanding end bad governance in Nigeria. The demands have gone way beyond calling for systemic, calling for the overhaul of the Nigerian police, down to engaging with the systemic impunity. So So that was where we left off, and now we continue October 1, 2024. And what we're saying is that, well, a man who is on the ground is not afraid to fall. That's exactly what we're going to be. That's where we're going to continue from October.
All right, let me go to Declan on this one. I mean, you were in Lagos, and we saw quite a number of things. One thing you did say was you witnessed individuals being sponsored to organize protests against protests, some individuals even to intimidate protesters. And you categorically did say that no protester came to the ground of protest with even a razor blade. I would like you to speak more on the coordination of these protests over the years, in the country. And why is it that at some point it appears to always end up being hijacked?
Every protest, before it commences, always have a mission and a vision to accomplish. And this is one of the most organized protests in the history of this country, where a notice was served to the government before it commenced. And so, why is it being hijacked? No protest is always being hijacked. Before it's being hijacked, in quotes, check the state actors. What role do they play? I'll give you an instance. While we're in Lagos protesting peacefully, I want to commend the Commissioner of Police of Lagos State, CP Mustapha Adego. He had some contacts. Some of his men were telling him, which I was privy to, let's tear-gas them, let's do this, let's do that. And he remained calm. And he was always there, coming around, even while his men were like trying to tell him, oh, let's tear-gas them, let's do this, let's do that. He knew the consequence that once you tear-gas a peaceful protester, it will snowball. It is that snowballing caused by state actors or by state agencies that always lead to the violence you see, that always lead to the looting you see, that always lead to the spillovers you see. Because while we were not just there, if they had tear-gas us, people will run helter-skelter. They will run into the streets. People in the streets will also be scampering for safety here and there. And that leads to crisis. And that is exactly what I'm saying, that no protest is organized to be violent. It has always been the instrumentality of the state that causes the violence you see here and there. And secondly, I want to say clearly that Mr. President of today is a product of protest. When he said, and I quote, Emilokon means it is my turn. Give me to me, it is my turn. That's an act of protest. And so, I wonder why and how Mr. President has gotten to the level of seeing protest as overthrowing or an attempt to overthrow a particular government. I listened to one of the aides a few days ago, one of the ministers thereabout, who was saying that it was an Adilalake, who was saying, the minister of mines, he said that protest was an attempt to overthrow the government. I wonder where he got that idea from. Mr. Adilalake has been a street man, has always been a protester. I don't know when it's generated that once a protest comes up, it's an attempt to overthrow. Oh, in 2012, when we all gathered, when this country was held standstill against Jonathan, it was not an attempt to overthrow Jonathan, right? So we must get it clear. People in governance today are not speaking to the people. They are speaking at the people. And you cannot speak at the people that voted you in. Before you become a minister, somebody was voted in. Either a president or a governor must have been voted to make you a commissioner or make you a minister. So you must respect the opinion of those who voted the person that brought you into power. And so I don't know where we're heading to in this country. That Mr. President has refused to heal to the pains of Nigerians. Today, for about a week ago and today, I went on the street. I saw fuel fuels everywhere here and there. And I began to wonder, Mr. President is the Minister of Petroleum, and nobody is speaking to Nigerians on why there must be fuel and why there must be price increase, unilateral increase of fuel in a country that has law and order. And you want Nigerians to be quiet. Nigerians will not be quiet. They will not be quiet. It means this government is not getting it right. And Mr. President will do the right thing. Nigerians are suffering. Nigerians are suffering.
All right.
They should not see themselves as comfortable while we're not comfortable.
All right, Declan, we need to go on another break. Of course, when we return, we will pick up. Do stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. If you're just joining us, this is still Politics HQ on News Central Television. I still have my guest with me. Declan Ihekaire is the National Coordinator Activist for Good Governance, and Juwon Sanyaolu is also the National Coordinator for Take It Back Movement. Both are joining me virtually, and we are discussing the fallout of the End Bad Governance protest, which of course did happen recently, and the forthcoming protest being organized by them. That's in October. I would like to say thank you for staying with me, gentlemen. But let me go to you, Juwon. Of course, Declan did make reference to the Minister for Soil Minerals, Mr. Dele Alake. I would like to read an excerpt, and I would also want you to sort of react to it, where he advised that if anybody is not satisfied with the government, the current administration, there is always an election coming. So you can wait for election and cast your vote. I just picked part of what he said. I can see Declan there laughing, but let me take your reaction first, Juwon, to that statement, and then we'll move to Declan.
Yeah, I think it's a familiar blackmail, against the Nigerian people, and that is why again I'll go back to the president's media broadcast. It's practically a state policy to blackmail the Nigerian people, to blackmail protesters, and gaslight them while completely ignoring their demands. We do not see any part of the 15-point demand that talked about removal of the president. And at any rate, Declan did mention that 2012 was Tinubu also planning to overthrow Jonathan when he was protesting in 2012. Nigerians protested against Buhari's regime despite the despotism of that administration. Protested his policies. But at any rate, you would see a pattern with the way the APC government reacts to peaceful dissent, and to them every peaceful dissent is treason. If that is the case, the president should have been tried for treason in 2012 for also protesting for subsidy. Nigerians protested for subsidy. So it's rather unfortunate that the president could go this route to blackmail and accuse those who is supposed to serve as with various offenses. And just now I was reading a tweet that we're saying that the police force had currently invited the president of the NLC, Ihekaire. He's been summoned for tomorrow, and in the letter summoning him, he's been accused for all manner of crimes, including financing terrorism, treason, and what have you, just for the fact that the NLC condemned the repressive tactics of the regime. I say we're dealing with a government that is tending in the direction of fascism, and it's high time Nigerian people recognize this and rise to confront the regime before before it completely continues to treat us as a conquered people. And this is also for the time for the media to also rise. In 2019, the media, especially Punch newspaper, took a very bold position against Buhari regime, with a very interesting and scathing editorial describing its regime as dictatorship. And I think it's high time the media in Nigeria also rise to education, rise against the creeping dictatorship of the Tinubu's administration.
Okay, let me leave you for a moment. Let me go to Declan. Your reaction quickly to what the Minister of Soil Minerals did say, saying that if you're not comfortable with the current administration, wait till 2027.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, the Minister of Solid Mineral, that's Damilare, is only protecting his food. He's protecting his office, but he shouldn't have talked the way he talked. Reminding Nigerians of 2027 that that's the only time you have right to change the government. He has forgotten so soon that they should have also waited till election time before they went on the popular 2012 mass protest against Jonathan. I think every government, every democratic government should have an understanding that they have tenure, and every activist don't have tenure. A genuine activist is tenoreless. I have used several governments. I have used military regime. I've expired them. I have used so many democratic governments. I've expired them. And so they are the ones that count 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, 16 years, 24 years, as much as they can. But Nigerians don't have tenure. And so they should be mindful of what they do. They should be mindful of what they say. They should also be mindful of how they act in a position that we freely give to them. You see, any government that made this kind of statement shows clearly that they don't have the mandate of the people. I tell people, I say, look, if you are genuinely elected and the military decide to take over by force, the Nigerian people or those that voted you in, if they are in the majority, they will defend that democracy to the latter. But if you stole the mandate to get there, you will be afraid, because those that will be against you will be more than those that will be for you. And so Mr. Damilare should be cautioned that, look, without people like us who were on the barricade during the military era, I don't think you'll be occupying the spaces occupying today. And so they shouldn't incite the Nigerian people again. Rather, they should look for a way to better the lives of the Nigerian people. I repeat again, it's not until you become a minister that you show the love you have for this country. It is not until you become Mr. President that you show the love you have for this country. We that are speaking, we're speaking from our mind, we're speaking the truth, we're speaking the reality that is on the streets of Nigeria. And so Mr. President should endeavor to listen to the ordinary people on the street. Few days ago, he got a vote of confidence from those who were like him in the past. He should have done, I made a post on my Facebook page. I said, look, the best vote of confidence Mr. President should have, that should respect, is that is coming from the street. I expect a situation where we do a poll on the street of Lagos alone, and let's see how many votes he will have to give him that confidence that people who exhausted their own office, who are only trying to guide.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Declan, because we're pressed for time and there are, quite a number of pending issues. Let's also talk about the fact that part of the concerns of what we saw in the last protest are allegations of sponsors and sponsored mercenaries. We saw in certain parts of the country where some individuals were carrying foreign flags. And
yes,
that sort of spiked worry. I would like you to speak on that, on the issue of sponsors and then sponsored mercenaries.
Thank you. When you say sponsor, every protest is either being sponsored by outside or by self. And every genuine protest is always being sponsored by self. Okay? Now, you see, do you pay me money to tell you that I'm hungry, or that I should be quiet, not to talk when I'm hungry? We should get it clear. And regarding those that were carrying the Russian flag, I said it. Protesters have a way of expressing their feeling, most especially against a government that does not listen to them. And so those flags we were seeing was to spite the government of Nigeria, to say, look, we are not better off in your government. We think we are better off with this country flag we are flying. So a reasonable government should tap into that and ask questions. What is it that I'm doing wrong, that I'm not doing right, that these individuals or these citizens feel they can get elsewhere? You see, until you get to that level of appreciating the language of your critics, when you get to the level of appreciating the language of your critics, you will get it right. But when you keep on seeing whatever that is done by others, you say it's sponsored. It's sponsored, it's sponsored, it's sponsored. I am sure with due respect, when President Buhari was coming on board then, as somebody from the Southeast, I was not sponsored to do all I did against Jonathan. I did it thinking that Buhari was going to give us the best of governance. And so nobody should begin to blackmail us by saying we're being sponsored. Nobody should do that. I sponsored myself in the struggle. Juwon sponsored himself. Soweto sponsored himself. Even the police in Lagos can testify that at Lagos protests, we have what is called congresses, where we allow the people to talk to us. And we donated, people were donating money. Protesters were giving out money, 100 naira, 200 naira, 500 naira. And those were the money we used in buying pure water and doing some other things to make sure that the protest was peaceful. And so nobody should come and begin to tell us that we were being sponsored. Did you sponsor those who came all the way from Aja or from Lekki or from Badagry to join the protest here in Ojota? Were they sponsored? How about those who decided to shut their shops down while the protest was going in Ojota? Ojota was where we're holding the protest, but the streets of Lagos and streets of Nigeria was quiet. So all those ones, were they sponsored? So we should be mindful of what we say. We should be mindful. Government should listen to the voice of the critics. When you listen to the critics, you get it right.
All right. Let me get Juwon's thought on this, particularly on the aspect also of the foreign flags, being flown in some parts of the country, which, has been branded treason.
Yes. Well, let me start by saying that I practically have nothing to do with those who are flying foreign flags, but I know for a fact that flying foreign flags can never amount to treason. As a matter of fact, many government officials even carry passports of other countries here and there. We've seen several hotel buildings that have displaying several flags. So poor people who are displaying foreign flags, if you can't hold several hotels or government officials who have multiple passports, you can't hold them on the account of treason. The protesters who are waving foreign flags definitely cannot be held down on the accounts of treason. And at any rate, in 2020, Nigerians, young people who were waving Nigerian flag, what was the outcome? They were shot at. The protest was drowned in blood. So what is the worth of the Nigerian flag these days? I wonder.
How about the issue of sponsors and mercenaries?
Well, yes, there is, and it's quite funny. When a sponsoring protest even become a crime, let us even start by that. If sponsoring and organizing protest is a crime, then the president should be first in line of conviction because he has sponsored and organized several protests in this country.
All right, Juwon, let's leave you for a moment. I understand we need to go on a quick break. When we return, we'll pick up. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. It's still Politics HQ on News Central Television, and I still have with me my guest. Well, I still have Juwon Sanyaolu, is the National Coordinator Take It Back Movement, and Declan Ihekaire is actually also the coordinator for the End Bad Governance. Well, thank you for staying with me, Juwon. Now, before we wrap up things on the program, there is one issue that, of course, Nigerians certainly, have been, not even certainly, it's been on for the longest of time. Queues are back at the petrol stations. We are seeing Nigerians, apart from buying the fuel at exorbitant pump prices, the queues are also back And it's affecting virtually everything from businesses to private life and all. And the president has said that no going back on the subsidy regime. I'd like you to speak on that, because I know that part of your demand is that the pump price be reversed to the barest minimum of what it used to be. Now that the president is saying no going back on the subsidy regime, are there suggestions?
No, it's part of, aside from the fact that queues returning to the to petrol station is part of, is a general part of the government incompetence we've been speaking to. I also think it's also part of their regular gimmicks, to justify looming increments in fuel price. And that is what we usually say. Once there is fuel queues, then the next thing we have is increments that follows. So I think we know where this is headed. And if the president continues to say no going back on his policy on fuel subsidy removal, it's tantamount to also saying that no going back on rising inflation. It's also telling Nigerians that prices of food, prices of commodities will continue to be unaffordable. And we're also telling the president, we're also using this moment to tell the president that no going back on protest.
But let's also talk about the fact that some recently on this program, I remember we had an interview with someone from the presidency, one of the special assistants, and he said some level of progress is being recorded in terms of their policies, particularly in the area of the price of food items. I mean, does that show any form of hope?
Well, are Nigerians buying food any cheaper? Did you buy food any cheaper this morning, in the morning or throughout today? Or Nigerians are getting transportation of fuel, as you've rightly pointed out, any cheaper? What was the price of how much do you use to fuel your vehicle when you are coming to the office today? So I think your guess is as good as mine. Those are propaganda that are relevant for a campaign. DPC cannot ride into Aso Rock with propaganda. I think they can sustain governance with propaganda. The statistics is different on the streets.
Do you think that a return of the subsidy regime on fuel is imminent?
That is, if there is anything that can solve, that can play a very key role in solving the problem of inflation in the country, reversal of the fuel subsidy is central to it. Especially that would mean that price of petrol will fall, and the implication is that cost of transportation would also fall, and this in a lot of cases would also affect our cost of commodities. But our demands are not just only about reversal of fuel subsidy. There are other demands, which includes tackling the process of hiking energy tariffs, which is also central to the cost of living crisis. We're also speaking to the floating of the naira, which is also central to the same problem. We're also saying that students cannot be dropping out of school due to the wave of fee increment across the country. These are part of the issues. We're also speaking to the constitutional foundation of our country that has impacted great economic woes on all of us, and specifically for the fact that the part of the Constitution, Chapter 2 especially, that deals with the welfare of the Nigerian people have been adjudged as unenforceable because of course it is not justiciable. We think this is fraud. If it can be justiciable for members of the House to receive 21 million naira per month, if it's justiciable for the president to use $150 million to get private jets, or billions of naira to construct lavish apartments for the vice president, the welfare of the Nigerian people cannot be treated as not justiciable. It must be primary. And it is the reason we describe the constitution as a fraud, because in Nigeria, the welfare of the Nigerian people continues to take a backseat. This must be addressed.
All right. Now, before I let you go, for the some protesters that are still held, in prison, some of them that are still within the confines of security agencies, is there anything you are doing or your team is doing to get some of them out?
Oh, yes. Our organization is working with several lawyers and several other organizations to ensure no protester is left behind. From Kano to Kaduna to Abuja, we have lawyers and several other organizations, including discussions with the Nigerian Bar Association, to ensure everyone that has been clamped down in prison by the Tinubu regime is freed unconditionally.
All right. Thank you so much for your time on the program, Juwon Sanyaolu.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And of course, I've been speaking to Juwon Sanyaolu, who's the national coordinator of the Take It Back movement. And we also had at some point Declan Ihekaire, is national coordinator, activist for good governance. And we have been discussing the fallout of the past End Bad Governance protest, which happened recently, and another protest, which is to come up in October. Well, in case you missed out, you can actually catch up on our YouTube platform. That's News Central TV. You can also follow us across socials. That's at News Central TV. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, on WhatsApp. You can also follow me personally at Dakbo Adigboyi. Until I come your way again, be a great citizen. Good night.